The political party funding bill was signed into law in 2019, months after the National Assembly and the NCOP passed the bill in 2018. The act could not be implemented in time for the 2019 elections. Implementation of the act was on hold to pave way for the IEC to develop regulations on how to manage and administer the fund. In January this year, President Cyril Ramaphosa signed the act into operation to be effective from the 1st of April. 5 months after implementation of the act, the IEC released its first quarterly report on the political party fund. The report on private donations above the 100,000 rand threshold had revealed 3 parties as the only beneficiaries.
The ANC and the DA declared individual donations that they received of 10,720,000 rands and 51 rands and 48 cents, respectively. So the first coming to the ANC and the second to the DA. Action SA declared total direct donations amounting to 3,305,090 rands and 26 cents.
Lack of donations made to the public fund meant for multi-party democracy has been dismal in the first quarter.
The fund, the Multi-Party Democracy Fund, has received only a single contribution from a member of the public, Mr. Paul Malcolm Graham. He made a contribution of 2,000 rand on the 5th of May 2021 via his MagTag credit. And this remains the only contribution received in that fund. Mr. Graham was kind enough and proud enough of his support for multi-party democracy, and he waived his right to anonymity. Regulation 5.3 of the presidential regulations, read together with Section 6.7 and 26.2 of the Act, provides that the money in the Multi-Party Democracy Fund will only be due for distribution once the amount in the fund reaches a total of at least 1 million rand. The effect of this is that to date there have not been any political party allocations from the Multi-Party Democracy Fund.
Some political parties say the disclosure of private funding of over 100,000 rand is a good provision in the Act.
That will ensure that there is more transparency and the people of South Africa will know what funds political parties receive.
Other smaller parties say while the Act has created transparency, the playing field is not yet levelled.
I think we can go further with party funding reform because it is so that the older parties have historically got old connections and old donations, and so in a multi-party democracy it is difficult for a new party to break into electoral campaigns and to be able to fund them. So I would support the call for those who want to support multi-party democracy.
The PAC is of the view that a plural system can only be successful if the various political views are supported enough to exist rather than to be smothered and killed by lack of public funding. The criteria of dominant political parties getting proportionally more than others is arbitrary and unfair.
The National Freedom Party did not receive any funding to disclose. But an event with 2,000 members present will cost you nothing less than 400 to 500,000 rand. And we all know that these events are taking place all over the country, and yet political parties have not disclosed any funding more than 100,000 rand.
If we want to achieve true democracy in our country, then we must first level the playing field. And we can only achieve that true democracy through party funding. It can't be right that other political parties are more financially stronger than the other political parties. That will always have a very serious impact on the performance of the weaker party that is not being funded.
Civil society organization My Vote Counts has successfully been at the center of pushing for transparency of private funding, but it is equally concerned that the Multi-Party Democracy Fund, in terms of the new legislation, has not performed well.
The Multi-Party Democracy Fund allows for private individuals, corporations to make a donation, big or small, into this fund, and then this fund is dispersed by the IEC to all political parties. So this is particularly important for the public to look at as a way of making their voices heard and participating in the democratic and the political process. And again, very important if we want to start inculcating a sense of collective ownership.
Another civil society group promoting constitutional democracy says smaller parties have to market themselves to attract private funding, apart from relying on the Multi-Party Democracy Fund.
There's been very little income flowing into that Multi-Party Democracy Fund so far. A lot more advocacy work needs to be done around that. As far as private funding of political parties is concerned, that's it's a competitive market, and parties can't complain about not receiving private funding if they're not attracted or making themselves attractive to potential donors.
KSAC and My Vote Counts say transparency on private donations received by political parties should still be tightened.
I think the IEC perhaps need to tighten up rules, and like with many of us with the SARS, if there's a nil return, you must file a nil return rather than not say anything at all, because we need parties to commit to saying that they have not received anything above the threshold, because if it subsequently comes to light that they had, then it would be a transgression of the rules.
What's also important to note is that obviously this is only for the first 3 months. We still have a lot of disclosing left to do, particularly because we know that we are in an election year. We are coming up on the local government elections, and it will be important for us for the second and third set of disclosures to see how our political parties are actually receiving and spending their money.
South Africa will go to the polls for the first time under lockdown in a pandemic. Millions of eligible voters are expected to use the ballot box to voice their satisfaction or dissatisfaction with service delivery in the 5th local government elections on the 1st of November. Mercedes Besant, SABC News, Parliament.